Hello and welcome to the Ditch That Textbook Digital Summit, where we are all about those great teaching ideas, empowering and equipping you with the things that you need to elevate and learning in your classroom and bringing you some of that technology that you love that will help you teach better. My name is Matt Miller. I'm the author of Ditch That Textbook and the host of the summit. And in today's session, we're going to be talking about a tool that I'm a big fan of that can kind of be like the backbone to a lot of things that you do in the classroom to help you kind of like organize, to collect things, to kind of stay focused and everything. And that tool is Wakelet. Now, usually when I start one of these sessions off, and this is one of those spotlight sponsor sessions where we get to take a kind of like a focus on a product or a tool or an app or something. And when I do one of these, a lot of times what I'm doing is pulling somebody over from the side, and I'm like over here and somebody else is over here, and we have a little conversation. But in this one, you just get me. See, I talked to Wakelet about doing one of these spotlight sponsor sessions, and they were, Matt, we know that you're a big fan of Wakelet and that you have lots and lots of ideas for how it can be used. So what if you just do this session yourself, just to tell everybody a little bit about Wakelet? And honestly, I am a big fan, so much so that you may notice that lots of the PDF notes that you get from your presenters from a lot of sessions this year in the Ditch Summit are embedded Wakelet collections. Like they're all gathered together in Wakelet. So we had always just used regular old, static PDFs, and you can actually generate a PDF out of a Wakelet collection. But we decided to start using Wakelet just because we really liked it as a format. And so I'm going to get the opportunity myself today to tell you a lot of the reasons that I like using it as a tool in class. Of course, I had to put on the Wakelet sweatshirt to do this. The only problem I realized is that with the black background, I kind of look like I'm a floating head. So you can see I really am. See, there are my hands. Like I really am a real full human being. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this and talk about 10 things that I love about Wakelet that I think that you can too. I should start off at the very, very top of all of this and let you know that maybe the biggest and best thing to love about Wakelet is the price. Wakelet's free, and you can use it in the classroom totally free. Students can use it, teachers can use it. And so that's kind of like one fantastic thing that I really do love about Wakelet. To sort of kick this off, maybe I should just tell you just real briefly kind of what Wakelet is so you can wrap your brain around it. I always like to use this comparison when talking about Wakelet. I haven't ever checked with the Wakelet folks to see if this is like an official thing that I can say, but they haven't told me no, so I'm going to go ahead and say it. I really feel like Wakelet is almost kind of like Pinterest for the classroom, where you can have you have a Pinterest board and you put lots of things on it. And you have different boards for different things. You can collect, like you might collect recipes and home decor ideas and things you want to buy your pet. And, each one of those has a different board. And then you can throw all of those things into that Pinterest collection. Wakelet's kind of like that, where you can create lots of collections. But I really like Wakelet because it lets you customize those collections a lot better. You can take each one of those collections, think of it like a or a little list or something. You can take that collection and then you can do lots of things with it. You can share it with other people. You can embed it on a website. You can change it all around. You can email it to people. There's like a ton of things that you can do with it. And so to answer that question, what are some of those ton of things that you can do with it? That's what we're going to dig into in this presentation, and this that I love about Wakelet. And a lot of them have to do with, practical things that you can do with Wakelet in the classroom. So let's dive right into this and start with number one, which is lists. I love that you can create lists in Wakelet. And so as you can kind of see in the example that you've got right there on the screen, you create, in this case, it's recipes to try. And then within the Wakelet collection, you can add little text entries, or you can add links, or you can add files, or you can add videos. Really sort of the sky's the limit of what you can add to it. But being able to make those lists can be super helpful in the classroom. And see, this is one of the things I do like about Wakelet. that it's helpful for students for learning, but it's also helpful for teachers for teaching and organizing. So if you think about it with students, they can create lists themselves. And really, creating a list in a lot of ways is kind of like a higher order thinking type of activity. You make a list, especially if it's like a numbered ranked list. If you make a list, students have to figure out, first of all, what goes on that list. You have to have criteria for what justifies going on the list. And then you have to figure out why number one is number one, why number two is number two, and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of justification and deep learning that goes into that. So if you want to use it for lists in the classroom as a learning activity, I think that's a very learning rich way to use it. But then, of course, as teachers, we make lists all the time, right? We make little checklists. We put them on sticky notes. We put a list of things in our, our lesson plan books and on notebooks, and all. I love checking them off. It gives us a sense of accomplishment whenever we check them off. Of course, if you have a list in Wakelet, it's accessible from anywhere. You can log into your Wakelet account and edit it, or you can just hang on to a link to a list in Wakelet, and then you can just pull it up anywhere on your device. So kind of like it says here, create lists with images, descriptions, links, and more. And you can even embed videos to show what your lists are all about in it. So lots of possibilities when it comes to that. Let's go to number 2. And number 2 is research. So a lot of times in the past, if students have done research projects, they've done them in just like regular research reports. And, they might tape them out in a research paper, and it lives in this little stack of papers that the student hands into the teacher. The teacher reads it, the teacher marks all over it, hands it back, and boom, it's over. And the more that we look at it, we start to realize that maybe that product of the research, we love the process of the research, right? The gathering of ideas, the synthesizing and ordering them and putting them into a cohesive unit so that when it's done, you have a well-created project. We love the process of that, but the end product of regular research papers is starting to get a little outdated and maybe even a little inauthentic. Of course, research papers still live in academia, but we're starting to see the product of people's research show up in different forms. And if you have students show all of their work in a Wakelet column where they've gathered all of this research, and, of course, they have lots of information, lots of facts, but maybe they also have links. Maybe they also have maps. Maybe they also have images. Maybe they also have files, like PDF files. Just all sorts of stuff. It could even be social media posts where people are talking about this, what they're researching in popular culture right now. They can gather all of that together and put it into a nice looking web page, kind of like the one that you can see in my example right here on the screen. And all of a sudden, that's a way to take that research and make it more authentic, so that it looks in a form like people actually use when they do research. But B, it's also much more shareable too, because once you've got that Wakelet collection, you can grab a link to it and you can share it anywhere to anyone. So I do love using Wakelet for research in that way. Let's go on to number 3, which is portfolios. And we're gonna dive a little more into something similar to this in a little bit, but portfolios. See, I think about when I was teaching high school Spanish, when I was still in the classroom, I would have students do work on paper, and then I would grade it and I would hand it back to them. And it would live in a folder. They would keep their folder of work, if I was lucky. Sometimes that work ended up in the bottom of their backpack or the bottom of their locker. Sometimes I could see the paperwork that students were doing for me, like sticking out of the bottom of their locker sometimes, like all torn up and everything. So that's not like a fantastic place for student work to live, especially if it's something that they've worked hard on, that they're kind of proud of. So what do we do instead? Well, we can have students gather some of their best work, some of their best, exemplars of their skills and what they're able to do in a portfolio. What about doing portfolios on Wakelet is a couple of things. For one, they can grab that work, whether it's an image of something that's done on paper or actual digital work that they've done, and they can throw it into that portfolio, of course. But then what's neat about it is that they can take that work and they can reflect on it. Reflecting on learning and thinking about what they've learned and the process that they used and how maybe they would change as a learner and how their views on the content have changed. That's sometimes just as important as the work. And so a portfolio can give students a place to put that work, but then also put some sort of a reflection. If they're doing it in audio or video where they're talking about it or just writing about it in text, like a portfolio is a great place for all of that to live. Let's go on to number 4, which is bookmarks. This is where you can kind of like collect the best of the web into one easy to find place. So if you gather things that you like out on the web, this is super helpful, I've found, for me, an educator. And really, when you find things out there on the web, and I don't know if you've ever done this before, but sometimes I'll go to an article or I'll see a link to an article and I'll think, oh, that's interesting. I don't know if I'll ever make it back to this to actually read it. I don't have time to read it right now. But if you ever feel that way, saving bookmarks into Wakelet can be a really good hang on to it for later. One of my favorite ways to do that, by the way, is the Wakelet Chrome extension. If you use Google Chrome as your web browser, you may know about Chrome extensions. They're the little programs that live kind of in the top right-hand corner of your screen. And you can turn one of those on for Wakelet. And whenever you show up on a web page, you just on that little Chrome extension and you tell Wakelet where you want it to save that bookmark, and immediately it's saved for later. So using it to hang on to those kinds of things can be great for us as educators. It can also be helpful for students too, because we were just talking about that research piece earlier, right? What if students are cruising around and they're just trying to find resources, find information? They can have that Chrome extension plugged in too. And then whenever they find it, they can just click on the Chrome extension and save that bookmark so that they're able to access it later. So that makes it really, I think, one of the big overarching things about Wakelet that I like about it is that it makes the entirety of the internet more manageable and easy to organize and easy to navigate. Now let's think about those bookmarks for a second. What if students are doing a research project in teams? Like if they're in a team of 2 or 3 or 4 people, and they want all of those bookmarks together in one place where they can all get access to it. What would that look like? Well, that kind of leads us to number 5, which is collaborate, which is really one of my favorite pieces of Wakelet, is that you really can share that collection with lots of people. And like it says on the screen there, everyone can access to the collection, and then everyone has access to it when it's finished. If it's ever really finished. Because if multiple people have access to it and they can continually add things to it, then, it may never be completely 100% done. So what's neat about Wakelet is you create a Wakelet collection. In fact, let me kind of what this might look like. So here's my Wakelet account, and I create a Wakelet collection. And of course, you can give it a title. Let's say that we're like collecting social media posts that people make about the Ditch Summit, because you're watching the Ditch Summit. And of course, you can, let's give this collection a title. And this is like tweet to the Ditch Summit hashtag, which, by the way, whenever you watch anything on the Ditch Summit and you want to either share something that you've seen, or if you want to see what everybody else is saying about it, use the Ditch Summit hashtag on Twitter. This will be a collection of things people are saying about the Ditch Summit. Okay, so from here, of course, what I can do is I can start adding things to this collection. But under the share button, you've got collaboration, and this is where you can invite other people to join your Wakelet collection. And you just copy this link, or you can give them a code. Like, there's a variety of ways that you can have people collaborate on this collection. So when somebody gets this link or uses the join code or whatever, then they're given access to add things to my collection. And so imagine if you have those, if you have those 2 or 3 or 4 people on a team that are all working together, once they're able to all throw something into that collection at the same time, now they've got this collaborative space where everybody can work, and they don't have to save it in their own, separate places, which does make things a little bit easier, I think. So let's move back to my slides. And we'll go on to the next one. Yes, this is. Does it make anybody feel a little bit better that I'm wrestling with my too? It happens to everybody, right? Okay, let's go on to this next one, which is about newsletters. So this is getting like super, super practical. And I love this for classroom communication. If you think about it, if we're the teacher in the classroom and we've got a class full of students and we're trying to, work our way through the things that we need to do, in the day, the week, the semester, the entire school year, there's only so much that we can do in the classroom. But if the parents at home and the families at home and the guardians and, whoever it is that's at home know what's going on in the classroom, then a lot of times they're able to kind of like push in the same direction that we are. We're all able to kind of work on the same team. So if what's happening in the classroom matches up with what's happening at home, maybe back at home, someone in the family is able to say, hey, I saw this thing in your class newsletter and saw that you guys are doing X, Y, and Z. That's so cool. Tell me about it. Or, oh, I saw in the class newsletter that you guys have a project coming up and it's due on Friday. How are you doing on that? What's your progress on that? See, everybody has a vested interest in students succeeding in the classroom. So if everybody knows what's going on and is on the same page, that can be huge. And that's where class newsletters really shine, right? Like it says on the screen, keep everyone in the loop in one space. And it's accessible from any device. And you can update it, which sadly you can't in an email. If you ever sent an email out and you're like, oh my goodness, I forgot the attachment. Or you send it and you're like, oh, I forgot there was one more thing. Or, oh, there's a mistake in this. You can't change that, but you can change a Wakelet collection. So if you send out a link to that Wakelet collection, then you're able to, go in and make changes in that little newsletter. But this other thing that I think is cool about this is this goes to show you that a Wakelet collection can be used for lots of things. Newsletter might not be, when you first learn about Wakelet, a newsletter might not be the first thing you think to use it for. But the more that you start to see the different parts that go into a Wakelet collection, you start to see different ways that it can be used, So in the newsletter, of course, you kind of like build it out. It almost looks like a document. But you build out all those different parts. And then you got a couple of ways that you can do it. You can either create a new Wakelet collection and send the link to that newsletter in the Wakelet collection out to families. You have a new newsletter. So new Wakelet collection each time you do a new newsletter. Or you can have one Wakelet collection that is the home base for your newsletters. And then you can continually add new information to it. So they're always coming back to the same collection. So you got a variety of ways that you can do that. But if you've not ever thought about using a Wakelet collection for a newsletter, that's one thing that I really like about it. Let's keep moving. Let's go on to number 7. We've talked a lot so far about all of the things that you can do generally with your Wakelet collections. Now let's talk about what you can put into it. Which I called the media items. This is another thing that I love about it, is that there's so much that you add to a Wakelet collection. And like it says on the screen here, they do integrate with some of your favorite EdTech apps. So if you look on the screen, you can see that you can add text So you can add a little text item to a Wakelet collection. Of course, you can add images too. And there's tons of different sources of images. You can add your bookmarks. Remember, we talked earlier about how if you're saving different things that you find around the web, they're all saved in your bookmarks, and then you can just insert one of those bookmarks into a Wakelet collection. You've got entire PDF files too. So, let's say a student's trying to do some research and they find a PDF of an article that they want to reference. Instead of just hanging on to that in their own, on their own device, what they can do is they can download that PDF and then they can stick it right into a Wakelet collection. This tweets one. So I know, a lot of times Twitter and social media are blocked for student use. I will say this ability to add tweets directly from Twitter into a Wakelet collection has been huge for me. I've been using Twitter to get connected with teachers and to get new teaching ideas and to improve my craft as an educator for years, probably pushing 10 or more years at this point, on and off all of those years. And whenever I find something really useful in a tweet, it's kind of like what I was saying earlier. You see that tweet on Twitter and you're like, oh, that's really cool. I'd like to remember that. I'd like to hang on to that. But if I keep scrolling, I will never see that tweet again. Collecting tweets in a Wakelet collection is really a great way to capture those things that you want to remember from Twitter. So, again, the Wakelet Chrome extension is a really great place to do that. You're scrolling through Twitter, you open up one tweet that you want to remember, you hit that Wakelet Chrome extension, and then you save it someplace. You can also use Flip videos directly from Microsoft Flip, formerly Flipgrid. This is one that I absolutely love. I mean, you'll see Microsoft Flip embedded into the Ditch Summit as a place where we do some like video reflections, video discussions about the sessions that we do. So I'm a big fan of Flip also. And what's cool is that if students create videos in Flip, a Wakelet collection is a great place for those to live. And so you can pull in videos directly from Flip and stick them in there. Of course, you can add YouTube videos. You can add files directly out of Google Drive or OneDrive, where we play nice with Google and Microsoft. And then there's Adobe Express. And oh my goodness, the creative stuff that you can make with Adobe Express. If you haven't gotten a chance to see the Spotlight sponsor session from Adobe, which was released on the first day of the Ditch Summit, definitely go back and check that out, because all of the images and graphics you can make, the standalone web pages you can make, the videos you can make, they're all super easy to make, and then they can live inside of your Wakelet collections as well. So things that you can do inside of a Wakelet collection that you can add. So if you start to look at all of these things, it kind of gets your brain processing like, what's possible inside of this? And what if I stacked a bunch of tweets and then a Flip video of me acting on them? What if I stacked an image and then a text where I'm discussing what's in the image? Image and text discussing, image and text discussing. When you start to see these stacks of how all of this can come together, you start to see what you can really do with Wakelet, which is really cool. Let's keep moving. Let's go on to number 8, which is embedding. This is one feature that I really, really love, is that you can take your Wakelet collection and you can embed it anywhere with a snippet of HTML code. Now, if I just said the words HTML code together and it scared you just a little bit, don't worry, because you don't have to know how to code. You don't have to know how to write HTML. But whenever you grab that little piece of HTML code and you go off to another place on the web where you can insert HTML code, it's really just as simple as copy and paste. And sometimes you can add a clickable, draggable, scannable, scrollable Wakelet collection, kind of like this one right here. This is a page on my website, Ditch That Textbook, where under time-saving tools, we just embedded an entire Wakelet collection here. And so what you can do is you can scroll inside of the Wakelet collection, which is embedded inside of the website. So if you have a class website and you're able to embed something through HTML code, this is a super easy way to just stick your Wakelet collection right on that page. And there's lots of places where you can use this, use this HTML code to embed Wakelet collections. So I like that. Let's talk about the Explore section of Wakelet. This is like a gold mine, okay? See, inside of your Wakelet account, usually like what we saw on the screen earlier, I was showing you in fact, let's see, I'm going to probably wrestle with my slides again here, but let's see if we can make this happen. See, right here, we were making a new collection, right? That's under collections. What about this Explore tab? See, if you look at Explore, you can start to see some of the things that people are creating on Wakelet. And I love this for a couple of reasons. Number one, you might just browse through the Explore section and find that somebody has already made what you were getting ready to make. So that's a possibility. But then also what you can do with the Explore section is you can maybe find some inspiration for something with Wakelet. So for instance, if we open up this holiday read alouds one right here and we go, oh, wow, look at this. There's a bunch of links to lots of different read alouds. And look, it has some embedded videos of some read alouds, but it's also got a little graphic on why read alouds are great, and then some different links to places around the web. So you can get inspiration on how to make your own Wakelet collections through the Explore section, which is cool. Let me just stop for a second and also notice that there are different organizations of the Wakelet collections. I keep talking about the like top to bottom all in one column organization. Because when Wakelet was like brand new, that was the one way that you could make a Wakelet collection. And I sort of have a fixed mindset on, that's how it is. But take a look at this. This is, you can organize them in columns. You can organize them in kind of like a great big grid. So there's different ways to organize your Wakelet collections, which is cool. So that's another thing to know about Wakelet that's good. All right. Let's wrap these last few up. This is the last one. Number 10 is the people. I love Wakelet because I love the people. The team behind Wakelet is fantastic. And you can see all of their smiling faces right here on the screen. I've gotten the pleasure of meeting several of them on this this photo. And really, if you ever have questions or if you ever need help reaching out to them on social media or through their website, they're always really, really responsive, and they're kind and generous. They put out all sorts of resources for educators. And then also, in addition to that, if you want to get in contact with them or just ask questions to the greater Wakelet community, which is like educators that use Wakelet on a regular basis. If you go out on Twitter and you use the Wakelet Wave hashtag, you can either tweet to the Wakelet Wave hashtag to share the things you're making on Wakelet or to ask questions sometimes. Or you can just go search it, kind of like I did in this image right here, and scroll up and down, and you can see the things that people are sharing onto social media about using Wakelet in the classroom. So if you're always looking for more ideas, that's a good place to go. And one more quick bonus. You can find a link to this in your notes for this video or on the presentation page. But out on the Ditch That Textbook website, we've created a post of some of our favorite ways to use Wakelet in the classroom. There's some pretty creative ones that go beyond some of the basic uses that we've seen in this presentation. So if you want to go deeper and you want to see some cool things that teachers are doing with Wakelet, this is a good place to go. So you can go to ditchthattextbook.com/Wakelet to find that. So you can either just type that right into your browser, or you can go find it in the PDF notes or the presentation notes. So there you go. Lots of ways that you can use Wakelet in your classroom. If you've not ever considered using it, it's free. What's a teacher's favorite price? It's got to be free, right? So it's free and it's powerful, and there's lots of things you and your students can use it for to improve student learning, but also for you to improve instruction and your organization too. So I hope you found some good things to use in that presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. So thanks so much for being a part of this. And thanks in general for being a part of the Ditch That Textbook Digital Summit. And hopefully we'll get to see you on another session. Take care.